There are moments in life when the calendar becomes more than just numbers. It becomes a mirror, reflecting something deeper. Hidden meaning, unseen patterns, and signs that whisper to us when we least expect it. 15th August for most people, it's just another date. But if you have learned to listen, you will know that dates have a vibration, an energy, a message. And this one is different. It does not come to warn you. It comes to awaken you. Sometimes life does not give you hints, it gives you shocks. A single day can carry 1,000 lessons, and on the 15th August, the world will either pass through it blindly or step into it awake. This is not about fear, it's about being ready, because surprise is only surprise for those who live unprepared, for those who live with awareness. It is simply the moment they were waiting for. Most of the time when people think about change in life, they imagine visible signs, clear instructions, and moments that feel unmistakably significant. They think of big decisions, graduating, changing jobs, getting married, moving to a new country. These are the doors they see, the ones life paints in bright colors so that you can hardly miss them. They are obvious, expected, and often spoken about for months in advance. But there is another kind of door, a door that you do not see until the moment it opens. It does not announce itself with noise or banners, but appears suddenly in the corner of your awareness, almost like a shadow you didn't notice before. And the truth is, these invisible doors are often the ones that change everything. They are not made of wood or glass. They are made of moments, decisions, and opportunities that hide in the ordinary. The problem is that most people walk through life with their attention locked only on what they already expect. They scan their days for the things they know, for the outcomes they predict, and for the patterns they are comfortable with. They forget that the universe does not operate only on the schedule we have planned. It operates in its own rhythm, its own timing, and with its own intelligence. And sometimes, in that rhythm, a specific day carries a different kind of weight. It looks like any other day, yet something in its energy, something in its flow makes it a threshold. 15th of August is such a day. To some, it will pass unnoticed, like a breath they don't remember taking. But to those who have trained themselves to live awake, it will be a door. And when a door like this opens, it does not ask you if you are ready. It assumes that you are, or it moves on to someone who is. The thing about doors you cannot see is that they do not exist in physical form. They exist in your choices. Imagine walking down a familiar street. You have walked this street 100 times before. You know every building, every shop, every sound. Yet on this particular day, for no reason you can explain, you turn your head slightly, and in that single moment, you notice a narrow alley you have never walked into. Something tells you to go. Maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's intuition, maybe it's just a feeling that today is different. And when you walk down that alley, you meet someone who changes the trajectory of your life. Or you discover a place that inspires you in a way you didn't think possible. That alley was always there, but you never saw it until something in you was awake enough to notice. This is how life works. Most people think that change comes because life pushes it onto them. They wait for the big moments. They wait for life to shout. But life is far more subtle than that. It speaks in quiet tones, in little nudges, in doors that appear only if you are paying attention. The tragedy is not that these doors are rare, it's that they are often missed. Not because they are hidden, but because we are distracted. We are too busy replaying yesterday or worrying about tomorrow to see what is standing right in front of us. Think about it. How many times have you been so lost in thought that you walked past someone you knew without even recognizing them? How many times have you ignored a thought that told you to call someone, only to find out later that they really needed you at that moment? Awareness is not about predicting the future. It's about being so present that when the future comes into the now, You can see it clearly. That is why 15th August may hold a door for you that no one else sees. The door is not on the date. It is in your readiness. And readiness is not something you can fake. You cannot pretend to be aware. You either live with your eyes open or you live in the half sleep that most people call normal life. Being ready for a hidden door means you have trained yourself to notice small shifts. It means you have learned to trust the slight changes in the wind, the feeling that something is different today, even if you cannot explain why. And here is the difficult truth: most people resist this kind of awareness because it is uncomfortable. To live awake means to admit that you do not know everything, that your plans can be interrupted, and that control is an illusion. It means living with the humility to accept that the unexpected may know better than you do. The beauty of an invisible door is that it always asks for courage, because you cannot see what lies beyond it. Stepping through is always an act of faith. You might find joy, or you might find challenge, but either way, you will find growth. And this is why such doors are so valuable. They strip away the safety of certainty and replace it with the truth of possibility. Possibility is not safe, but it is alive, and life, in its purest form, is always found on the other side of possibility. Imagine again walking through your day on the 15th of August. Perhaps it begins as any other day. You wake up at the same time, drink your coffee the same way, check the same messages. But somewhere in that routine, life slips something in. A conversation with a stranger, a sentence in a book, a sudden thought you cannot shake. And in that moment, you stand at the edge of the invisible door. Most people will ignore it, thinking it's nothing important. They will choose comfort over curiosity, familiarity over the unknown, and they will keep walking, not realizing they just passed a doorway that will never open for them again. But if you have trained yourself to listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole being, you will recognize it, you will feel it, and you will step through. This is why awareness is not a skill you practice only when you think you need it. It is a way of living. A warrior does not sharpen their sword only when the enemy is at the gate. They keep it sharp at all times. In the same way, you cannot suddenly become aware only on special days. You must live aware every day so that when a day like 15th of August comes, you do not miss the door it holds. Many people ask, but how will I know if it's the door? The answer is, you won't, not in the way you want. You will never have perfect certainty, but you will feel an inner pull, a quiet sense that something is calling you forward. It will not always be logical, and it will rarely be comfortable. But if you wait for certainty, you will wait forever. The invisible doors in life do not open for those who demand guarantees. They open for those who are willing to walk forward in trust. Some of the most life-changing moments you will ever experience will come disguised as ordinary events. The person who becomes your greatest teacher may appear in your life because you happen to take a different route home one day. The opportunity that changes your career might come because you spoke up in a meeting when you usually stay silent. The deep transformation in your spirit might come because you finally listened to that small voice inside that you've been ignoring for years. These are not coincidences, they are the doors. What makes 15th August special is not the number, the month, or even the year. What makes it special is that it might be your day to encounter the unexpected. The universe does not need permission to place such a door in your path. It does not need your schedule to be clear, your mood to be perfect, or your confidence to be high. It simply needs you to be awake, because the door is never the real miracle. The miracle is that you recognize it when it appears. You have walked through invisible doors before. You just may not have realized it at the time. Think of moments when your life changed unexpectedly. The day you met someone who would become important to you. The moment you decided to take a risk without knowing the outcome. The conversation that made you see the world differently. These were all doors, and at the time they felt like chance. But with the clarity of hindsight, you can see they were part of a greater design. The difference between the past and now is that this time, you can choose to see it as it's happening. Life is not just about opening the doors you see. It is about being ready for the ones you do not. Because the doors you do not see are the ones that take you where you never imagined going. And perhaps, just perhaps, 15th of August will be that kind of day for you. When people think of strength, they often imagine the ability to control, to organize, to arrange life in a way that feels secure and predictable. They make plans, schedules, and strategies as if the future can be tamed. And there is nothing wrong with preparation. Discipline and planning have their place, but there is a truth that most people spend their whole lives resisting. Life does not exist to follow your plan. It flows in its own direction, bends in its own time, and moves at a rhythm that is far older and wiser than your personal preferences. If you have ever stood beside a river and watched the current twist unexpectedly, you will understand this. The water does not ask permission before it changes direction. It bends because the terrain demands it. It flows because that is its nature. And in the same way, life bends. There will be days when everything you thought would happen simply does not. The meeting is cancelled. The trip is delayed. The person you were counting on changes their mind. And in the emptiness that is left behind, most people feel frustration, even anger. They say, "This wasn't supposed to happen." But I ask you, supposed to happen according to whom? The truth is, much of our suffering comes not from what life gives us, but from the way we resist it when it doesn't match our script. The power of the unplanned is that it forces you to see beyond the script you wrote for yourself. It is a reminder that life is not a straight line from point A to point B. Sometimes it is a circle, sometimes a spiral, sometimes a leap to an entirely different place you could never have predicted. And yet, in those moments when the plan breaks, something else has a chance to enter, a possibility you didn't even know existed. Think about a time in your life when something unexpected happened. Perhaps you lost a job and thought it was the end, only to discover a new path that brought you more joy than you ever imagined. Perhaps you missed a train, and in those extra minutes, you met someone who became a friend, a partner, a guide. Perhaps an event was cancelled, and in the quiet space that remained, you heard yourself think clearly for the first time in years. None of these moments were planned, and yet, they shaped you more deeply than anything you could have scheduled. 15th August may be such a moment. It could be the day that does not go according to your design. The day when something you expected to happen simply doesn't. You can treat it as an inconvenience, an annoyance, a problem, or you can treat it as an opening. Most people, when plans are disrupted, rush to fill the space immediately. They find something else to do, another distraction, another plan. But the wise do not rush. They stay still long enough to see what the unplanned is bringing into their life. The unplanned is not chaos. It is clarity in disguise. It is life showing you a path you would never have chosen on your own because you didn't know it existed. But to receive it, you have to be willing to let go of control. This is where most people struggle because control feels like safety. When you know what is coming next, you can relax. But the truth is that safety is an illusion. You can spend years planning the perfect future and still be thrown off course in a single day. That is why adaptability is more valuable than control. A tree that refuses to bend will break in the wind, but the one that sways survives every storm. There is an ancient teaching in martial arts: do not be rigid against the unexpected. In training, you can prepare for known movements. You can block, counter, and strike against patterns you recognize. But a true master understands that a fight never follows a script. You must be able to respond in the moment, not according to memory, but according to what is in front of you. Life is the same. It will not always attack you in the ways you rehearsed for. It will test you in new angles, new situations, new rhythms. And your strength will be measured not by how perfectly you stick to your plan, but by how fluidly you can move when that plan dissolves. This is why the unplanned carries such power. It forces you to access parts of yourself you would never use otherwise. It reveals your creativity, your resilience, your instinct. You learn to make decisions without overthinking, to trust your ability to land on your feet even when the ground shifts. You learn that stability is not about the world staying the same. It is about you becoming steady no matter how the world moves. There is also another gift in the unplanned. It humbles you. When things always go according to your design, you begin to believe that you are the only architect of your life. You forget that you are part of a greater whole, part of a vast and interconnected flow that involves millions of unseen factors. But when the unplanned happens, when life interrupts your control, you are reminded that you are not alone in shaping your destiny. The universe is participating. Circumstances, timing, and even chance events are working with you, and sometimes against you, not to harm you but to guide you to a different outcome. When you learn to trust this, the unplanned stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like a guide. You no longer panic when plans shift. Instead, you ask, what is this trying to show me? This single question can turn frustration into curiosity, fear into openness, resistance into acceptance. Because what you resist will persist, but what you accept will often transform. 15th of August could be one of those days where a single shift in your schedule leads to something extraordinary. Maybe you will receive a message you didn't expect, meet a person who changes your perspective, or find yourself in a situation that challenges you to grow. But this will only feel like an opportunity if you are willing to see it that way. If you cling to your original plan so tightly that you cannot see beyond it, you will miss the gift hidden in the change. Imagine you are traveling on a road you know well. You have driven it many times, and you believe you know the fastest road to your destination. But one day, there is a detour. You are forced to take a different road, one you have never been on before. At first you are irritated. It feels longer, slower, inconvenient. But as you drive, you notice the landscape changing. You pass a viewpoint you never knew existed. You see a sunset you would have missed entirely if you had taken your usual road. This is the nature of the unplanned. It forces you to take paths that reveal beauty and truth you would have never seen otherwise. It is important to understand that the unplanned does not always arrive as something pleasant. Sometimes it comes as loss, disappointment, or difficulty. But even in these forms, it carries seeds of transformation. Think of the forest after a fire. At first, it looks destroyed. Blackened trees, ash on the ground. But in time, the nutrients from that ash feed new growth, and the forest returns, richer and more alive than before. The same is true in life. The events you didn't want, the disruptions you resisted, can become the soil for your greatest renewal. This is why the most adaptable people are also the most peaceful. They have learned that plans are only guidelines, not guarantees. They know how to navigate change without losing themselves. They trust that the path is not always meant to be straight, and that sometimes the bend is exactly where you need to go. The power of the unplanned is that it teaches you this truth not through theory, but through experience. So when 15th of August arrives, if something unexpected happens, pause before you resist it. Instead of rushing to fix it or force it back to your plan, ask yourself, what if this is the real plan? Allow space for the possibility that the unplanned is not a mistake. It is the path revealing itself in a form you didn't recognize. And if you can walk forward with that openness, you will discover that some of the best parts of your life will come from the days that did not go according to plan. There is a strange thing about the way life teaches us. The lessons that shape us most deeply are rarely delivered with noise. They do not arrive with trumpets or flashing lights. They do not demand your attention like a loud voice in a crowded room. Instead, they appear quietly, almost shyly, and because of this, they are often missed. The silent teacher is not in the business of forcing you to learn. It will place the lesson in your path and simply walk away, leaving you with the choice to see it or to step over it without noticing. We live in a time when attention is one of the rarest resources. The mind is flooded with distractions, demands, and endless streams of information. Because of this, we are trained to respond to the loudest thing in the room. We chase the urgent, we are pulled toward what shouts at us, and we forget to notice the subtle movements beneath the surface of our lives. And yet, the most profound moments of awakening often begin so softly that they can be drowned out by the smallest distraction. The silent teacher can be a single sentence you overhear from a stranger, one that strikes a chord in your heart for reasons you can't explain. It can be a moment when someone's eyes meet yours and you see a story behind them, a pain or a truth that connects you instantly. It can be an ordinary morning where, for no reason at all, you feel the weight of your own existence and suddenly see how much you've been taking for granted. These are not grand, cinematic moments. They are delicate threads, and yet if you follow them, they can lead to an entirely different way of living. The difficulty is that most of us have not trained ourselves to listen for them. We think that learning comes from lectures, books, and obvious mentors. And yes, those are valuable, but life itself is always teaching, and it does not limit its lessons to classrooms or speeches. It teaches in silence, in the way the seasons change, in the way a child laughs without reason, in the way your own breath feels different when you are anxious compared to when you are calm. But to hear these lessons, you must first quiet the noise inside yourself. You must develop the habit of noticing. On a day like 15th August, something may happen that seems small to others, but is significant for you. It may be as simple as walking past a park and hearing the sound of leaves rustling in a way that reminds you of a forgotten memory. It may be a short conversation that feels unimportant in the moment, but lingers in your mind for days afterward. You will not understand its meaning immediately. The silent teacher rarely reveals the full lesson all at once. It plants a seed and leaves it to grow in its own time. Weeks or months later, you may look back and realize that was the moment something inside you began to shift. The most dangerous thing about the silent teacher is not that it is hard to hear, it is that it is easy to ignore. You can walk through an entire season of your life blind to the lessons it was offering, because you were waiting for something more dramatic. But if you think back over your life, you will find that many of your turning points were born from something subtle. A gentle nudge, a quiet realization, a choice that seemed small at the time, but later proved to be monumental. Sometimes the silent teacher appears in the form of discomfort. Not a crisis, not a collapse, just a small irritation that keeps returning, a sense that something in your life is not aligned. You can ignore it for a while, but it keeps showing up, whispering that a change needs to happen. It doesn't shout because it wants you to choose the change willingly, not out of panic or desperation. If you listen early, the change can be gentle. If you ignore it for too long, life will eventually speak louder. But by then, the lesson may be harder. One of the greatest challenges is that silence itself can be uncomfortable for many people. We fill our days with noise because we are afraid of what might surface in the quiet. In silence, you hear the truth of your own thoughts. You see the reality of your choices. You face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. And yet, this is exactly why silence is such a powerful teacher. It shows you what you need to see, not what you want to see. There is a story of a young monk who asked his master, how he could learn to hear the voice of wisdom. The master told him to go into the forest and sit without moving until he could hear the sound of the trees growing. The monk thought this was impossible, but he obeyed. On the first day, all he could hear were birds and wind. On the second day, he began to hear the subtle creak of wood as the trees swayed. By the third day, his hearing seemed sharper than ever. But on the fourth day, something changed. He felt, rather than heard, a slow, steady rhythm. The life of the forest itself, a pulse that was always there but drowned out by noise. The master later told him that pulse exists in all things. Once you learn to feel it, you will know how to hear the silent teacher. This is the kind of awareness the silent teacher demands. It is not about straining to hear something hidden. It is about quieting yourself enough to notice what has always been there. The lesson is never truly absent. It is simply drowned in the noise of your mind. Sometimes the silent teacher comes through other people without them even realizing it. Someone might tell you a story about their own life, not knowing that it contains the exact truth you needed to hear. They are not speaking to you as a teacher, but the timing of their words, the way they land in your mind, becomes a lesson. You may thank them years later, and they will be surprised because they never knew they taught you anything. This is how life works. It uses everyone and everything as a mirror if you are willing to look closely enough. There is another layer to this. The silent teacher often tests your humility. It does not always appear in the form of someone you respect or admire. Sometimes the lesson comes from a person you think you have nothing to learn from. Sometimes it comes from a situation you would rather avoid. If you are too proud to receive a lesson from unexpected places, you will miss many of life's greatest teachings. Wisdom does not limit itself to the voices you approve of. When 15th of August comes, the silent teacher might be waiting in the smallest corner of your day. If you are rushing, you will walk past it. If you are distracted, you will not feel it. But if you are open, you may notice something that changes the way you see everything. The lesson may not make sense immediately, but that is the nature of seeds. They take time to grow roots before they rise to the surface. If you want to meet the silent teacher, you must slow down. You must practice seeing without labeling, listening without planning your reply, being present without waiting for the next thing. You must allow yourself to be fully in the moment, because the silent teacher only speaks to those who are here, not to those who are lost in yesterday or tomorrow. This is why so many people never hear it, not because they lack intelligence, but because they are rarely here. Life will not always shout its wisdom into your ear. More often, it will place it gently at your feet, trusting you to notice. The question is whether you will be looking when it does. Courage is one of those words people love to admire from a distance, but hesitate to live closely. It is easy to praise courage when it is written in books, celebrated in films, or remembered in history. But when it appears in front of you in the form of a choice, it rarely looks glorious. Most of the time, it looks like uncertainty. It feels like discomfort. It carries the taste of risk in your mouth, and your first instinct is often to step back rather than forward. And yet, every moment in life that has ever transformed a person deeply has carried this same flavor. People often think that courage is something you find when you need it most, as if it lies hidden somewhere inside you waiting for a crisis. But courage is not an emergency switch. It is a habit of the heart. It is built quietly, in the small moments when you choose honesty over comfort, when you take a step towards something that feels bigger than your fear, when you speak a truth even though your voice trembles. These moments might feel insignificant at the time, but they prepare you for the larger thresholds you will face. There is a certain point in every journey when you stand at the edge of something unknown. You cannot see the whole path ahead, but you can feel that stepping forward will change you. This is the moment where courage is tested, not in the safety of preparation, but in the nakedness of action. The unknown has a way of pulling all your doubts to the surface. It asks you questions you thought you had answered long ago. Am I ready? What if I fail? What if I am not enough? And yet, there is another question, quieter but far more important. What if I never try? The fear of the unknown is not a flaw. It is part of being human. Your mind is designed to protect you, and it sees uncertainty as danger. It will invent excuses, rational explanations, even false logic to keep you in familiar territory. But familiarity is not the same as safety. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is stay exactly where you are, refusing to move because you cannot see the entire map. Life rarely gives you the whole map. It gives you a single step and it asks you to take it. On the 15th of August, it may not be a loud event that tests your courage. It may be something small, almost invisible to others. An opportunity disguised as a question, a conversation that opens a door, a decision to say yes when everything inside you wants to retreat to what you know. These moments are easy to dismiss, but they are where courage lives. It does not live only in grand gestures or public acts. It lives in the quiet resolve to move forward when you could just as easily remain still. The difficulty is that courage rarely feels like courage in the moment. It often feels like fear. Your heartbeat quickens, your breath changes, and your mind fills with reasons to wait. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act in its presence. It is looking at the fear and saying, "You may walk beside me, but you will not lead me." If you wait for fear to disappear before moving, you will wait forever. The strange thing is that the moment after you take the step, fear often transforms. What felt like a solid wall becomes a doorway. What felt like a mountain becomes a single hill. You look back and wonder why you waited so long. This is one of the hidden gifts of courage. It reshapes your perception of what is possible. Each time you step forward into the unknown, you expand the boundaries of your own life. Courage also requires trust. Not blind trust in everything, but trust in your own ability to face whatever happens. You may not control the outcome, but you can control your presence within it. This is the mindset of the warrior. Not that every battle will be won, but that no matter the outcome, you will stand and face it fully. A person who waits for certainty before acting will live a life of hesitation. But a person who steps forward without guarantees will live a life of depth. Sometimes courage is saying yes, but other times it is saying no. It is refusing to follow a path that does not feel true, even if it is the easier choice. It is walking away from what no longer serves you, even when you do not yet know what will replace it. In this way, courage is as much about letting go as it is about reaching forward. It is the recognition that staying in the wrong place out of fear of the unknown is a slow kind of death. There is a particular kind of courage that is quiet, almost invisible. It is the courage of people who get up each day and face challenges no one else sees. The courage to continue healing after loss. The courage to keep believing in kindness after betrayal. The courage to remain open to life after disappointment. These are acts of bravery that the world does not always recognize, but they are no less powerful than any public act of heroism. On a day like 15th of August, courage may not look like a leap. It may look like a single step. It may be the decision to speak when silence would be easier, or to listen when speaking would give you control. It may be choosing to show your authentic self in a space where you are unsure how it will be received. And the truth is, these small steps often have a far greater impact than we realize in the moment. There is a saying in Zen practice, leap and the net will appear. This does not mean recklessness. It means there is a support in life that you can only discover once you commit. The net is not visible before you leap because it is made of the people, opportunities, and inner resources that gather around you once you have chosen your path. If you wait to see the net before leaping, you will never leap at all. Fear will always offer you the comfort of standing still. It will whisper that you can decide tomorrow, that you can wait until you feel stronger, that the timing isn't right. But courage knows that the perfect moment rarely comes. It knows that growth lives in movement, not in waiting. When you take the step, you are not just moving towards something. You are also moving away from the limits you once believed were fixed. And perhaps the greatest truth about courage is that it does not just change the moment. It changes you. The person who steps forward is not the same as the person who hesitated. Something inside you shifts each time you act despite fear. You begin to see yourself as someone who can meet life head on, someone who can stand in the uncertainty and still choose to live. And that self-image becomes a source of strength for every choice that follows. When the moment comes, whether it is on the 15th August or any other day, you will likely feel the familiar pull of fear. Your mind will present you with the safest path, the most familiar option. But somewhere beneath that noise, there will be another voice, quieter yet stronger. It will say, "This is the moment. Step forward." And when you listen to that voice, you will discover that the unknown is not nearly as dangerous as the regret of never trying. Patience is one of the least celebrated virtues in a world that moves faster every day. Everything around you trains your mind to expect instant results, instant answers, instant gratification, instant rewards. But life has never been a machine that works on demand. Life is more like a seed planted in the earth. No matter how much you water it, you cannot make it grow faster than its own season. You can nurture it, protect it, give it the right conditions, but you cannot force it to bloom before its time. And this truth is both the frustration and the beauty of the journey. We often admire great achievements, breakthroughs, and transformations, but rarely do we honor the slow, invisible work that makes them possible. We see the tree standing tall, but we forget that for years its roots grew silently underground. We see someone living a life of strength and wisdom, but we do not see the countless small moments when they chose to keep going despite seeing no sign of progress. Patience is not just the ability to wait. It is the ability to wait while maintaining your faith in the process. When you begin something, a new discipline, a personal change, a dream, you feel a surge of excitement. Your mind pictures the outcome clearly, and your heart feels full of possibility. But as the days pass, the excitement fades, and the reality of the slow, repetitive work sets in. You begin to wonder if it's worth it, if you're even moving forward at all. This is the moment where patience becomes your greatest teacher. Without it, you will abandon the path before you ever see the fruits of your effort. Patience is not passive. It does not mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means showing up every day with your full presence, even when the results are invisible. It means trusting that small, consistent actions are shaping your future in ways you cannot yet see. The river carves the rock not through force, but through persistence. The same is true for your life. On the 15th August, if the day brings you something unexpected, it may also test your patience. You may feel as though change should happen immediately, that you should already be in a different place than you are now. But every season has its own rhythm. A flower that blooms too early is destroyed by the frost. A fruit that ripens too soon has no sweetness. The timing of your growth is not an accident. It is part of the design. Impatience often comes from comparison. You look at others and think they are moving faster, achieving more, reaching their goals before you. But comparison blinds you to your own unique path. The seed of an oak tree does not grow at the same speed as the seed of a bamboo. The oak takes its time building strength so it can stand for centuries. The bamboo spends years growing unseen before shooting up in a single season. Both are part of nature, both are complete, but neither is wrong for its timing. Patience also requires humility. It asks you to accept that you are not in full control, that life will unfold according to a rhythm greater than your own. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. A farmer does not pull on the shoots to make them grow taller. He tends the soil, he waters, he protects from pests, and he waits. The waiting is not wasted time. It is the necessary space in which growth happens. There will be times when waiting feels like standing still, but in truth, even when nothing seems to be changing, the roots are deepening. Think of the challenges you've faced in the past. Often, it was only much later that you realized those times of uncertainty were shaping the strength you needed for the future. The same is happening now. The silence, the delays, the pauses, they are all part of the process of becoming. Patience teaches you to value the journey rather than only the destination. If your only joy comes from reaching the goal, then most of your life will be spent in dissatisfaction, because the journey always takes longer than the moment of arrival. But when you learn to find meaning in the small daily actions, in the gradual unfolding, you begin to live fully right now. You stop postponing your happiness for a future moment and instead plant it in the present. Sometimes patience feels like a test, but it is also a form of protection. Imagine if every door in life opened the moment you knocked. You would walk into situations you were not ready to handle, relationships you could not sustain, responsibilities that would crush you instead of helping you grow. Patience allows you to arrive at the right time, not just when the opportunity is ready for you, but when you are ready for the opportunity. In martial arts training, students often want to move quickly to the advanced techniques, to skip the basics because they seem too simple. But the basics are the foundation. Without years of repetition, the body cannot move fluidly, the mind cannot remain calm under pressure. The slowness is not a punishment, it is the training itself. In life, your seasons of waiting are the training that make you capable of holding the blessings you seek. Patience is also a form of self-respect. It is saying to yourself, I am willing to give my life's work, my dreams, my growth the time they truly deserve. When you rush, you are treating your life as something small, as if it must fit into the convenience of your schedule. But when you give it time, you are honoring its depth. There is a quiet power in those who have learned patience. They are not shaken by delays or setbacks because they understand these are part of the road. They do not give up at the first obstacle because they know progress is not always visible. They have learned to trust the unseen, and that trust gives them a kind of peace that others cannot easily disturb. The truth is, everything meaningful in life is built over time. Relationships, wisdom, skill, strength, these cannot be rushed. You can force an appearance of them, but the depth will be missing. Time is what gives things their weight, their beauty, their reality. Think of the most precious stones. They are formed over millions of years under pressure. Think of the most profound friendships. They are built over countless shared moments, not in a single meeting. As you move forward, remember that the 15th of August, like any day of significance, is not an isolated event. It is a point along a larger journey. What you do that day will be shaped by all the quiet days before it. The ones where you showed up, where you waited, where you kept going even when you saw no sign of change. And what you experienced that day will in turn shape the days that follow. This is why patience is so vital. It keeps you steady so that each day builds upon the last. There will always be a temptation to force the pace, to try to control the timing. But forcing the pace often damages what you are building. It's like opening the oven before the bread is baked. It collapses because the process was interrupted. Life asks you to trust that the timing is not random. It asks you to believe that just because you cannot yet see the full picture does not mean it isn't forming. The practice of patience is not just waiting. It is how you wait. If you wait with frustration, resentment, or doubt, you poison the soil of your own growth. If you wait with attention, care, and faith, you enrich it. Every day becomes part of the unfolding, even if that day seems small. The seed does not know the day it will sprout. It simply keeps reaching toward the light, trusting that the moment will come. And when the moment does come, when what you have been building finally begins to show, patience gives you something else: gratitude. Because you remember the long road, the slow days, the doubts you overcame. You understand the value of what you hold, because it was not handed to you instantly. It grew with you, and in the process, you grew with it. Faith is often spoken of as if it is something abstract, something to think about, something to hold quietly in the heart. But true faith is never just belief without motion. True faith is belief that expresses itself through action, even when there is no visible evidence that those actions will lead to the result you hope for. Faith in action means moving forward when the path is hidden, planting seeds even when the sky is heavy with clouds, stepping into the river before you see the bridge. It is the courage to live as though what you seek is already making its way towards you. Many people believe they have faith until the moment they are asked to act on it. They speak of trust, but when the conditions are not perfect, they hesitate. They wait for a sign, for certainty, for the guarantee that things will turn out exactly as they imagine. But life rarely works this way. Often, the sign comes only after you have taken the step, not before. The path is revealed by walking it. Think of the way a sailor navigates at night. Out in the open sea, there are no roads, no streetlights, no visible map. All he has are the stars above and the wind on the sails. He must trust his training, his instincts, his understanding of the ocean's patterns. Every decision he makes is an act of faith in the knowledge he has built and the destination he cannot yet see. In your life, you too must sail into waters where the outcome is uncertain. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. There is a moment when you are on the edge of change, where everything in you wants to retreat to safety. The mind begins to whisper reasons to wait, to delay, to gather more information before taking the leap. But if you listen closely, you will hear another voice, quieter but deeper, telling you that the moment to act is now. That voice is not reckless. It is the knowing within you that the conditions will never be perfectly aligned, and that your courage will create the path ahead. Action without faith becomes restless and reactive, chasing results without a guiding center. Faith without action becomes stagnant, a dream that never leaves the imagination. When the two work together, they create a force that changes everything. You trust enough to act, and you act in ways that reinforce your trust. Each step strengthens the other. Some people wait for motivation before they act, but the truth is that action often brings motivation. The energy you seek comes from movement. Imagine trying to steer a boat that is not moving. It is almost impossible to change direction until the wind catches the sails and the boat begins to glide. In the same way, your life gains momentum when you move, even if at first you are unsure of the direction. Faith in action is not blind hope. It is not about leaping without awareness. It is about aligning your steps with your values, your principles, and your vision, and then committing to those steps, even when the immediate result is invisible. It is planting the tree, not because you expect to sit in its shade tomorrow, but because you believe in the generations that will. On the 15th of August, or any day when the weight of choice is upon you, you may be faced with a decision that requires faith in action. Perhaps it will be small, speaking your truth in a conversation where it is easier to remain silent. Perhaps it will be large, choosing a new direction for your life when the old one feels safe but stagnant. In either case, the principle is the same: move in alignment with what you know to be right, even if you cannot see the entire road ahead. Fear will always offer you reasons to wait. It will tell you to gather more proof, to look for guarantees. But the greatest proof often comes after the step, not before it. When you act with faith, you send a message to life itself. I am ready. And life responds. Doors that were invisible begin to appear. Connections that seemed impossible begin to form. Opportunities that were hidden begin to show themselves. But none of this can happen if you remain still, waiting for certainty. The ancient masters understood this well. They taught that the mind can imagine endlessly, but until the body moves, the imagination remains only a shadow of what could be. This is why the training hall was as important as the meditation hall. It is one thing to sit and contemplate the path. It is another to walk it. Every step taken in the physical world shapes the unseen world within you. Sometimes action is not dramatic. It may be as simple as choosing kindness in a moment of frustration, or as subtle as dedicating 1 hour each day to your craft. Faith is built in these small movements. If you can trust yourself to follow through on the small things, you prepare yourself for the larger leaps when they come. The person who cannot be trusted with a single drop of water will never be trusted with the river. Faith in action also means releasing the need to control every outcome. You may act with all your heart and still face setbacks. This does not mean your faith was wasted. It means your faith is being